Well, I guess that bell means class is in session. First episode of the Interstellar Academy happens right now. Well, hey guys, and welcome back to the channel, and this is the first episode of what I'm going to call the Interstellar Academy. This is a segment I'm adding to the channel now that are going to be short tutorial videos about a particular subject. Now, if you hadn't watched the last video, I did mention this at the end of that video. Let me kind of go into this real quick. For some time now, I've been wanting to create some videos that are just tutorials, just straight to the point, nothing else on the video except that particular point of interest. Even though through the years I've done a lot of techniques now and demonstrated a lot of things, I've tried to create playlists to direct people to particular topics and stuff. A lot of this stuff kind of gets buried within those videos and you have to scroll through a bunch of stuff. So what I plan to do with these is, as I said, is just to create these short tutorial, straight to the point videos, and also link up some videos I've done through the years to kind of give you further demonstrations about stuff that we're talking about. So this first video, what I'd like to cover is using a food dehydrator with helping to speed dry your models. Now, I purchased one about 4 or 5 months ago, and what prompted me to do so actually was a modeler, Brad Groudon, who I've gotten to know through Wonderfest. He was getting a lot of his stuff ready for Wonderfest, and he mentioned along the way that he was using a food dehydrator, and it caught my eye because I've been seeing people use these sorts of things over the last number of years now, and asked him some questions about it, and did a little more research and came across a channel called Barbatos Rex, which, by the way, if you're not familiar with his channel, I'd highly recommend it. He's like a YouTube test channel. He tests all kinds of things, whether it's different kinds of paints, airbrushes, compressors, and he has a video about using a food dehydrator. Lots of great information. He's a really good teacher too, so check him out. I'll put the link to his channel down below. So I found this to be a very helpful tool to use. I'm excited using it. It's really been such a nice addition to all the things that I have here to help me with my model building. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to walk you over now to, or at least switch locations now to where I have the food dehydrator plugged into place. So let's head right over there. All right, well, this is the unit I have here now. It's on these shelves away from the bench on that side. There's enough area behind it to allow air to circulate through, and it's a pretty simple unit. It's by a company called Blazant. Hadn't heard of the company before. Really what I was looking for was a unit that would fit most of the things that I work on. There are certain units that are much bigger than this, and certainly some that are smaller. I don't work in really large scales, as many of you know, so this should accommodate most of the things that I work on. The unit itself, let me just kind of go through some specifics here, comes with 8 of these trays. These trays are open from the bottom like this. It also has a couple other things that are related to food items, like these silicone pads that you can put stuff on, and a plastic tray like this. You don't put these inside the unit. The unit is very simple to function. You turn it on by the start and stop button, and it has a little window here that will allow you to scroll between temperature and time just by pressing this button. Let me go ahead and turn this back on again by pressing this time and temp button there. And you've got a plus and minus button here. These are all just touch buttons, and you have a keep warm button. Obviously that is for food. We have some preset settings here are for fruit, meat, vegetables, and herbs. Obviously I don't use any of those. And then we've got a light button here that allows you to peek in and see your item. Okay, so you just simply put your item in there, and you start by just setting the time and temperature, of course, and then you're off and running. I'll go through the settings here in just a second, but food dehydrators basically work by circulating warm, low-grade hot air around the item that's in there, and over a certain period of time, it's going to remove the moisture from that. So there's a fan right behind there, and of course there's a heating element as well, and that's basically it. It's pretty easy to use and pretty simple product. All right, we're back at the bench here now. Let me go ahead and talk about the settings that I use. So first I'm going to talk about acrylics, because that's what I work with the most. And the settings I use are about 105 degrees for about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the size of the object and how much paint certainly is on there. I paint with acrylics, as I said. I use an airbrush, so we're not talking about thick applications of paint. But as I've learned different techniques of layering paints and weathering with dry brushing and washes and those types of things, it's been very helpful to have something to speed that process along a little bit, because dry brushing, for example, you really have to have a dry surface to brush on, otherwise it's not going to look right. When you're doing washes, you're going to apply a gloss coat on that model first before putting on your wash, and it's nice to not only speed the process up, but to be confident that it's dry before you put on any washes. With regard to enamels now, I'm just going to pass along some of the information I have here after I've gone to some websites like Reddit and a few other places, and that YouTube channel I mentioned. But people who build car models in particular, you know, they're applying enamel paints that are nice and glossy. They don't want obviously any defects or fingerprints. So I've read that they put their pieces into the dehydrator for 4 or 5 hours, sometimes half a day. I've seen some other people note that they do multiple applications of placing it into the dehydrator so that that surface is nice and dry, so that you can handle it without having any problems. So they generally use temperatures somewhere over 110 degrees, maybe 115, and it works really well for those types of things. So again, these are just recommendations that I've read about. If you have any experience with the dehydrator, maybe have some other suggestions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Well, let's talk about a couple of other applications that you can use a dehydrator for. This now is the Y-wing diorama I created for the upcoming San Diego Comic-Con art show, and a good portion of this is the simulated rock I created with Foamular and Sculptamold. Now, Sculptamold is this plaster sort of stuff that you have to mix with water, so there's a lot of moisture in it, and this is actually the second time using that stuff, and it actually takes longer to dry than it was suggested to me. I thought, at least I was told, it could dry overnight pretty easily, but I would, the first time I used it anyway, I came in the next morning and looking at it thinking that, man, this stuff's still not dry. And you know, it makes sense, because Sculptamold is one of these things that you just can't really get a good even layer, at least I haven't been able to, over the material. So you're going to have some areas that are thicker than others. You're going to have more water in certain areas versus others. And so I guess it makes sense that it's not going to dry very evenly. And it really did help to have the dehydrator around for this project. The other thing I did for this too is to use this gloss media, and that dried really well in the dehydrator. And if you recall, I made another diorama using a Rancor figure, and for that I used air dry clay for the rocks, and man, that dehydrator really works for the air dry clay. Within about an hour or so, less than an hour and a half, that stuff was rock solid and ready to go. And one other thing I can think of too is Mod Podge. As you know, I've gotten a habit of using that with displays and display bases, often mix this with some terrain to get some texture along the base, and this stuff dries quickly also. And it's very helpful to use this stuff if you're using Foamular at all before you paint Foamular. So to speed things along, that dehydrator works great for this too. Another example is this figure here of the Gorn that I just finished, and not only did I use it for the paint application and the metallic paints, metallics can take a little longer to dry too, but also you see here I added some glitter on his eyes, and that entailed applying some glue, some clear Elmer's glue, and I used the dehydrator to speed that process up as well. Another application that comes to mind, drying your model kit parts. So it's a good habit to get into rinsing and washing with dishwashing liquid those model parts before you begin, so that you don't have any problems with paint sticking to it. Sometimes there's some residues or oils left over from the manufacturing process, and I don't know about you, but I've ran into this problem where I have a really contoured piece of a model, and just kind of going along with my model building process and painting, I think it's all dry. I mistakenly did not check close enough, and there's some little bead of water sitting in some nook there that when you go over it with paint, you start to see that it's not drying, or it's starting to drip. So people have used it for that too. I haven't tried that yet, but I have no doubt it would work well for that as well. And one other thing that comes to mind is something I failed to mention with enamels. I did find it seems a consensus, at least among car builders anyway, to let your model sit after the paint application for about 15 to 20 minutes, probably just to let the paint set a little bit before they place it into the dehydrator. So that's something to think about. Okay guys, well that is going to do it for now. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to contact me here on my YouTube channel or at interstellarmodeler@gmail.com. I wanted to start with this particular topic because it's something new that I've been working with, and I no doubt will make some reference or comments to as I go along with my model building from here on out. And I just wanted to let you know what I was talking about there. So, oh, there goes the bell. That means class is dismissed. But before you go, if you have any topics of interest that you might want me to cover, feel free to let me know, and I'll see what I can do about creating a video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.